Hello, everyone. My name is Jim. Thanks for coming to my talk on Terraform, GitOps, and Kubernetes, how to manage your infrastructure and applications as code. A little bit of background on me. I've been working in the software world for over 16 years now. I've had a number of roles at various companies. Currently, I am a developer advocate with Harness. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find me on Twitter. Here's my GitHub and my email address. So if you haven't heard of Harness before, our mission is to enable every software engineering team in the world to deliver code reliably, efficiently, and quickly to their users. So we have a software platform that covers the entire software delivery lifecycle from CI/CD all the way into production with features like cloud cost management, feature flags, and we recently acquired Chaos Native, so we'll be offering chaos engineering integrations in the near future. If you'd like to learn more, you can check out our website at harness.io. So in 2022, I hope that everyone has heard of infrastructure as code. There are a lot of different solutions out there, but today I'll focus on Terraform. Once you start learning about Terraform, you'll quickly want to get your code checked into a source code repository, hopefully Git, and from there, you'll need to structure that code and build a delivery pipeline. So today, I'll share two approaches that I've seen development teams adopt and be successful managing code from development into production. Each has its own benefits and potential drawbacks. So we'll be looking at an approach that uses a Terraform TFR file, one per environment, and then another that uses directories, one per environment. So let's have a look at some of the tools we'll be using. So of course, we'll be using Terraform. We'll be using GitHub. Docker, hopefully everyone's used. Specific to Terraform and Kubernetes is the Terraform Kubernetes provider, and we'll be using Drone CI. So hopefully the first three are familiar to everyone. The last two I'll show right here. So if you're unfamiliar with the Terraform Kubernetes provider, it's pretty fantastic. There are a lot of ways to manage your Kubernetes resources. Terraform is yet another tool to add to the pile, but I feel like if you're in an organization that's comfortable with Terraform, you should really consider the Kubernetes Terraform provider as an option for your Kubernetes resources, your deployments, your stateful sets, your services, and so on. So what I'll be sharing today in these pipelines is specific to Kubernetes. This is a workflow that you could follow for any tool that has or service that has a Terraform provider. I was at a company where we used the GitHub provider to manage all of our GitHub repositories as code, and it worked very similar. If you haven't heard of Drone before, Drone is an open source container native tool written in Go. It was started in 2012, so Drone turns 10 this year. Drone was acquired by Harness in August of 2020. Drone's an extremely small footprint tool where you just need the server and a runner to start executing pipelines. It supports a variety of source code solutions, GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab. It's also multi-OS and multi-architecture, so if you need to run builds on Windows or Mac, or even ARM, Drone will work for all of them. So let's have a look at a demo of these two workflows in action. So first we'll start with the TFVAR per environment. So here I have a repository, and I have pods running in two namespaces, demo prod and demo dev. So let's take a look at the dev one. So this is the pod info project, just a simple project microservice that tells you about the pod, where it's running. So this is in the dev namespace and tells you the pod is based on the promote workflow that I'm showing here. So let's make a change and see it through. So I'll go into the deployment Terraform file and change the message. Hello, Conf42. New message, and we'll just commit that right to the main branch. This is going to kick off my drone pipeline. If I click it correctly, there we go. So here's the demo dev pipeline kicking off. It clones my repository, sets my kube configuration, initializes the environment, and then runs an apply. And it's complete. So now if we go look at pod, we should see our message if we refresh. And once we reestablish the tunnel, port forward, yes, hello Conf42 now appears. So one feature of Drone is the ability to handle a promotion pipeline. So that's how I've configured this one. So all I have to do is take that build and promote it to prod in this case. So here's a new pipeline kicked off. You'll see the name is different, demo prod this time. Similar steps are running, configuration, initialization, and now an apply. But this time it's using the prod TFRs file. All right, the deployment is complete, and we can try forwarding into the pod 98. Yes. Here we are in the prod namespace with our new config Conf42 message. So a couple thoughts on that workflow on TFR per environment. So it works well for a small amount of tightly coupled resources. And it works well when both environments or however many multiple environments, they're all running continuously. So now let's look at the other approach to a directory-based approach in this other repository that I have. So here's the other repository. And you'll see here we have dev and prod separate directories. So if we look at both of them, they have the same files. The only differences now are going to be in the locals.tf, where we've got namespace that has to be different. Other than that, everything is pretty much the same. So if we bring up a port forward to the dev pod, here it is, pod info directory based, and we can make some changes in here and see them reflected. So let's go to write a new message. Same as before, hello Conf42. And we'll commit that right into main and watch the drone job kick off. Same steps are running, initialization, and now an apply step. Great, so now if I come over and reestablish my port forward, there we go, our message is there. Perfect. So if we go back to the repository, something I can do in this workflow that I couldn't do in the other, or I couldn't do easily, is tear this down. Let's rename this to destroyed. I like renaming files to _destroyed. It's very obvious what's running and what's not if you do it this way. So I'm going to say destroy the dev deployment. I'll do this in a pull request this time, just to be safe. And we'll watch the drone pull request run this time. This time it's going to run a plan. Great, so it's telling me it's going to destroy the deployment, which is exactly what I want because this is dev. I will merge this in and go back and watch the pipeline. Great, so there it is being destroyed. So if you've ever worked with a CI pipeline, CD pipeline for Kubernetes and wondered how to handle when you delete a YAML file, if you delete a YAML file, your CD pipeline doesn't have it there. It can't run kubectl delete on the file. But if you work with it in Terraform, everything can just be an apply operation. If a file is removed, that's fine. Terraform will go ahead and remove that resource for you. So it's a potential workflow that really isn't possible if you're doing YAML-based manifests. So that's that demo. Some thoughts on the directory approach. So the pull request workflow, I could have done a pull request for prod where I couldn't have done it in the previous example. And that ability to tear down the development resources, as I just did, I think is a big advantage. So I can save some money, save some resources, and not run stuff in development when it's not needed. So the big question is this GitOps? What we just did, we're using Git, we're following a pipeline. Is this GitOps? So there is now a open GitOps.dev, which is created by a working group comprised of members of various companies that have created this resource. So Open GitOps is a set of open source standards, best practices, and community-focused education to help organizations adopt a structured, standardized approach to implementing GitOps, which is great. So now we have a really good resource to hopefully standardize all this. And they've given us 4 principles. So it needs to be declarative, versioned and immutable, pulled automatically, and continuously reconciled. So the first 2 principles here, I think what we just went through, absolutely we're following those. Pulled automatically, maybe not as much. We're really only executing this when commit events are happening in the repository or deployment event in the first example, promotion event. Continuously reconciled, yeah, I don't think we're meeting that. We're not running something continuously looking at the current state of the infrastructure resources, comparing it to the desired state, and reconciling them if needed. So that's something to think about. So the 2 big tools that everybody talks about when they talk about GitOps are Argo and Flux. So the question I'd like everyone to come away from with is, can we follow GitOps without Flux or Argo? So these are 2 tools. They're great tools. Nothing's perfect, and not everything is running in a Kubernetes cluster, right? So, and even Argo recently had a fairly high-profile security vulnerability, which could have potentially led to an attacker obtaining sensitive data from your Kubernetes cluster. So what do we do if we're not using Kubernetes and we want to do GitOps? Kubernetes is great, but there are a lot of other ways that we can run software in 2022. And we're just going to have more in the future, not less. So using Git as a single source of truth for your infrastructure and applications brings a lot of benefits. So let's keep talking about all the different ways that we can safely and securely apply that configuration to our environments through GitOps principles and with these different tools. So with that, I will leave you with some resources. So Harness, we have our own Slack community at harnesscommunity.slack.com. We have a discourse that you can get involved with at community.harness.io. We also have a regular meetups at meetup.com/harness. If you want to learn more about Drone, the official documentation is out at docs.drone.io. And I recently wrote an article, blog post on how to run your own drone CI. So if you liked what you saw in those demos, it's very easy to get started running your own drone CI right on your laptop. Anything that can run Docker, you'll get started in just a few minutes at this link at the bottom. And if this sounds interesting to you, if being part of a company that creates tools to help developers build, test, deploy, and manage their code more effectively, we are hiring. Just go to harness.io and look for the careers section. And with that, we've reached the end. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.